notice I want to use for the subject divine leftovers. Divine leftovers. I started something last week in John 4. We talked about divine detours. But I want to look at this morning divine leftovers. I want you to look at somebody and tell them your miracle is not in what you lost. You're going to say it a little bit better now. I know we had a party here yesterday. Look at somebody and tell them your miracle is not in what you lost. It's in what you have left. Notice now, when we look particularly at this passage of Scripture, a common passage of Scripture, easily quoted, easily cited, heavily misunderstood. When we look at the feeding of the 5,000, we oftentimes have heard it. Sometimes you hear it in popular culture. Sometimes you'll see different things that happen and different things that occur. But one of the major things that the Holy Spirit kind of began to relay and impress upon me is that we are in a time, and we must recognize the season that we're in which it is very easy to know about God, to hear others talk about God, but still have your heart hardened to the things of God. And the disciples had been walking with Jesus. They had been watching Jesus, but they still did not fully know or understand who he was. One thing about me, I was asked recently, especially as I'm getting ready to get married and all that, and someone asked me, I believe it was, I don't know if it was a counselor, what, do I like leftovers? And I looked back and said, sure, absolutely. Growing up for me, I feel like the leftovers was always the best part. It wasn't until after you had already eaten, and if you ever get a chance to go by Mother Kelly's kitchen, which he feels like it sometimes, my brother's going to pick up the slack now. Or if you go by Ivo's house and his grandmother makes some oxtails and all of that. I enjoy the oxtails when I go on Sunday nights. I don't know if they got some there tonight. I'm speaking by faith. But I love to go there and get the oxtails, and you know when you have the sauce, and you come on, talk to me now.
Yes.
And you have all that. But for some reason, when you put it away, you come back the next day. Anybody can testify about that. There's something about the beauty of leftovers that after it had already been cooked and the sauce thickens up some more, and you go and you begin to put the sauce, you want to just begin to kind of, put the spoon in the plate, and you're trying to pull up the rest of the piece on the bottom and put it in and put it in the microwave, because the leftovers is when everything begins to thicken and everything begins to come together, and it tastes even better than it did the first time. And one thing I have come to realize and understand is that God has a way in our lives of taking the fragments, taking the leftover things, taking the things that people don't pay much attention to, and using those things to literally be signposts in our lives. The very things that we thought or we forgot about, or that did not really even make sense, or didn't even seem as if they were significant. He takes those things and shows his grace and his favor in our lives. And so notice now, there's several things that we begin to see as we look at this particular passage of Scripture. Jesus is trying to get them to change how they see him. He's trying to get them to change how they see him, because they are used to things happening rationally. They are used to things happening from an intelligent standpoint. They are used to things happening in ways they are familiar, but now they are in unfamiliar territory. Let's unpack this for just a moment. So notice now, Jesus goes over to the Sea of Galilee. He goes over to the Sea of Galilee. I was blessed in January to go to the Sea of Galilee. It's a very wide area, very large area, and we even have a service on the area. It's a very big sea. I was kind of shocked by it. You watch the movies, and the movies make things seem a little bit smaller than they really are. And notice now, a great multitude follows him because they are drawn to him by what he does. They're not drawn to him because of who he is. They are drawn to him by what he does. It is baffling to me how people will connect with you. They'll want to be your friend. They want to begin to befriend you and connect with you and stand close to you when you begin to do things that entices them.
Amen.
I've often told even some of the folks that are part of this house, I'm always very interested because God has blessed us, especially in the season we're in now, to be a bit more resourceful than in times past. And sometimes I'm always blown away by those who want your resources but don't want your relationship.
Yes.
I'll say it again. They want your resources, the things, the connections, the relations, the things that you have, without really wanting the essence of who you are. Am I making sense?
Amen.
And one of the challenges here is that they were drawn, Sergio, they were drawn, specifically Sean, they were drawn by what he was doing. They were not drawn by who he was. So they were attracted to the signs. They were attracted to the miracles. They were attracted to the things that drew them, still without fully understanding who he is. And even in like fashion today, we live in a church culture today in which we treat church like we treat Walmart, or we treat church like we treat ShopRite or Whole Foods, in which we come in and we have a preconceived notion of what we expect and what we look for, and so we have preconceived notions of what we expect about God. We have preconceived notions about what we expect about other people, and so we come in with these process mentalities. You know, everybody's talking now about organic, and you got the show, the movie of What the Health and all this kind of stuff. And so you got people talking about they're going to be vegan for 30 days and can't even be vegan for 3 minutes and all this kind of stuff. And so we love to catch fast trends. Are you with me? We love to catch things that happen very quickly without really understanding the essence of who we are. So is it possible that you can admire the things of God and not even appreciate the essence of who God is in your life? It's impossible to enjoy the gifts you've been given without fully being able to appreciate the giver of the gift you are. So they were drawn by his signs which he performed. So they were blown away by what he was able to do. They were blown away by what he was able to do. And so now the Bible says he goes up on the mountain. There he sat with his disciples. And very quickly, the scene begins to change. And I'm not taking long to get where I'm going, because I'm going to touch some more of this next week. Bishop Mark said I need to space this out so you can catch it. So something very familiar happens here. Notice now it is the feast called the Passover. The Passover is very significant because there were 3 feasts, as I've shared many times. There were 3 feasts in which you had to present yourself into the city. Passover, Tabernacles, and there was another one. So it is around the time of the Passover. The Passover is significant because in Exodus, they were commanded by God to leave Egypt. And as they were commanded by God to leave Egypt, God specifically told Moses, tell the people, I want you to slay a lamb, and I want you to put the blood on the doorpost. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. So it is already symbolic, and we're now beginning to see the very exact thing that happened with Moses now beginning to take place with Jesus. Because Jesus is already showing them that he's greater than what they're familiar with. And I don't know what stuff you've had going on in your life, and I don't know the issues and the circumstances and the problems and the challenges that have been facing you, but whatever you're dealing with before you came here this morning, look at somebody and tell them Jesus is greater than that.
Jesus is greater.
There is no problem that's too hard for God. There is no circumstance that's too hard for God. And even in the midst of trying and testing and trying to figure out how all of this is going to make sense, he still has a way of being able to provide when there is no way. I wonder if there's someone that can testify to that. Now notice now something very interesting. The Feast of the Jews is near. Jesus lifts up his eyes, seeing the multitude, comes up on the mountain, and he says to Philip, where shall we buy bread that they may eat? It's strange that he's asking a question. Jesus is fully man and fully God. He's asking a question. Where shall we get bread so that we might eat? Strange for God to ask a question.
Yes.
Because when God asks a question, he already knows the answer. So God does not ask questions for information. He asks questions so that there might be a revelation in your life. So he asked them, what are we going to do? Where are we going to find bread? And he said this to them, notice verse 6, to test them, for he already knew what they would do. So Philip is already trying to figure out and trying to deal with what's going on because he doesn't really understand what's happening. And then he says to him, we've got over $20,000. It would cost more than $20,000 to feed everybody here because there's already 5,000 people gathered around. So it's a big environment. It's a big area. It's a big place. And while it's a big area and it's a big environment, they have a big problem. He's trying to figure out how to solve it. But God did not ask Philip the question for him to solve it. Asked him to see where he was. And notice what happens. The Bible says he looks over. And one of his other disciples, Andrew. I like this guy. I like Andrew. I love Andrew types. I love people who, when there's a problem, that they immediately are looking around at what's available. First thing God asked Moses was, what's in your hands? If you're ever going to figure out what to do next and you're confused, always look at what's in your hands. Always look at specifically what's in your hands. Because God will use what's in your hands and show you what is next. He looks at them and says, what's in your hands? What do we have available? So notice they had to do a survey. They had to do a survey. They had to do a survey. They had to do a survey to take inventory of what was around them. And so we want to look first of all at the survey. They had to take a survey to look at what was available. And then the Bible says, look over that. It looks and he says, there's a little boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. But what are they among so many? What I have in my hands is so small.
Wow.
I can't even fathom how we would be able to use it. What I have in front of me is so small, it can't even matter to God. And what you don't understand is that God has a strange way of using the stuff that to everybody else really seems like nothing. And he's able to take what seems like nothing and turn it into something. Looks over and says, this little bit of 2 fish and these 5 loaves, it's not much, but this is all this boy brought to us. And I don't know if it's possible, but it might be possible that I can take this little bit and use it for God.
Yeah.
So we move from seeing a survey to seeing surrender. Because all I'm going to do is take what I have and give it to Jesus. Notice the problem. Here's where we mess up. We mess up because we look at how small it is. We look at how bad things are going. We look at how rough things are looking. Instead of taking what we have to Jesus. I don't have much, and there's an old hymn that says, just as I am without one plea. I don't have much, but I'm going to take the very little thing that I have, and I believe if I get it in Jesus' hand.
Oh yeah.
That means I have to come to the place of surrender. I've got to come to the realization I can't do it by myself. I need God.
Yes.
To do something in my life. And notice he sends it at him and he looks at him and he says, I don't know what this is amongst so many. And Jesus says, hey, everybody sit down. When they sat down, everybody's looking around and trying to figure out what they're going to do. They're trying to reason and trying to figure out what's going on. And once they're sitting down now watching him on top of the mountain. Now understand that he already had sat on top of the mountain before they even began to gather around, already showing that he himself was the chief among them, because he was already seated in front of them. But this is really resurrection language, because after the resurrection, Jesus ascends back to the Father, and he is seated at the right hand of him. So we understand that this is foreshadowing. This is a picture in a picture. This is a commercial. This is a stop sign. This is an alert to something else that's getting ready to come. And he looks at them and says, have everybody sit down. And this is really where I want to land this morning. Everybody sit down, and I want you to just sit and wait with me. And so he takes what was given. He first does a survey. Then we see surrender. And after surrender, we begin to see supply. Because they hand him what does not really look like much. He takes it and he begins to multiply. The Bible says he then takes the loaves and then he blesses the loaves, and then he is required to break the loaves, and then he gives the loaves. It is interesting in John's gospel that we don't see the scene in the upper room where Jesus breaks bread with his disciples. Unlike the synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, we don't see the scene play out that we so commonly refer to when we partake in communion. The only time we see him breaking bread in John's gospel is when he's about to feed 5,000. But I believe not just in the fact that he's taking the bread and giving the bread, but I believe he also does the same thing prior in our lives. He takes us. He takes us from the most vulnerable places in our lives. He takes us from the most uncertain places in our lives. He takes us from the areas and the things that doesn't make sense. And after he takes us, he blesses us. But after he blesses us, he breaks us. And I have come to the realization that there really is no true blessing without breaking.
Yes.
When God is really going to bless you, sometimes it'll feel as if he's breaking everything inside.
Yes.
Because he takes the bread and he blesses the bread and he breaks the bread and he gives the bread. He takes our lives, he blesses our lives, he breaks our lives, and then he gives our lives. So even if I'm in a blessed place, I will always find myself simultaneously in a broken place. Because if I'm going to be used by him, he's got to take me and bless me and break me and give me. I didn't know when I was Jelani's age, when I would pray as a kid and ask God, pray strange prayers as a child, would take a globe. 7, 8 years old, take a globe. 6, 7 years old, take a globe and spin the globe and lay my hands on countries. Never had any idea that I'd be years later on my second passport. A short amount of time. I was a little boy, but take my hand. I would go to school, elementary school, with on the walls. If you remember in elementary school, they have the world on the wall. And I would lay my hands on the wall They say, what are you doing? You're always doing something crazy. But I understood that I was called to do something different. I had no idea at that time that as much as he would bless me to do it, he would also break me. Was telling my story this week with a pastor. We were fellowshipping together. I was blown away, Sean, because he asked me my journey, and I was sharing with him some of my journey growing up in ministry and all of that, and preaching this one my whole life. And he looked back at me, and he has a powerful ministry. God's blessed them downtown Brooklyn. They got a $40 million building that he got for free.
Yes.
And he was telling me, like, God did it for me, he can do it for you. And I said, I received it. Thank you, Lord. I received it. Hallelujah. Okay, good. Yeah, I got you. Thank you. All right. Hallelujah. And we were sitting there. He said something to me that was so powerful. He said, the same age God was using me to minister, I was strung out on drugs. I was a full addict by 11 and 12 years old. He said, I was so messed up that by the time I got to 17, he said he didn't get clean until after he turned 17 years old. From 11 and 12 years old, he was so strung out. When he comes to share his testimony, he's blown away. He said, I was 11 years old when I first got addicted. He said, and I was strung out on drugs and alcohol until I was 18 years old. He said, it wasn't until then that the gospel hit my life. And it changed my life. And now the very one that they used to have to drag to AA has a ministry all over this country to addicts and broken people. God will often take the broken areas of our lives and use them to bring glory and honor to his name. So we see a survey. We see surrender. We see supply. And finally, and I'll deal some more with this, I'll unpack this some more later. Finally, we begin to see surplus. Surplus comes once he takes it, blesses it, breaks it, gives it. And as they're giving it out, it multiplies. 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 Wasn't added. Wasn't subtracted. Wasn't divided. It began to multiply. It began to multiply. There are things in your life, broken areas in your life. You've given yourself to things. And God has a way of using the fragments to multiply. The miracle wasn't tied just to the multiplication, but it's tied to the leftovers. Because Jesus says to them, gather the pieces that are left over and let nothing be wasted. This passage haunted me all week long. I was wrestling with this text all week long. Because I was amazed, Greg, I was amazed that Jesus was not blown away, or while the people were blown away at him for the miracle, he was more concerned about the fragments. He looks at the leftovers and says, don't waste the leftovers, because the testimony is in the leftovers. It's not just in what I've done, but it's in the surplus. It's in me providing over than what you expect me to do. You're praying for one thing, but I'm going to bless you so that you're going to have to figure out what to do with the leftovers. Looks at them and says, let nothing be wasted. I'm going to take you. I'm going to bless you. I'm going to break you. I'm going to give you. But even after you've given out, there'll be a leftover. What he's really saying is, I'm going to put you in the place of overflow. Somebody shout overflow. Somebody shout overflow. Somebody shout overflow. I don't know about you, but right now I'm in a place in which I need God to do something pressed down, shaken together, running over. I need things says, looks back at him, listen to them, let nothing be wasted. And what I love about God, hallelujah, is that even when you're not so much worried and trying to figure out how he's going to do it and how he's going to make way, how he's going to provide, he already knows the provision that's coming. He says, don't let anything be wasted. Finally, as I close, in ancient Palestinian time, especially in context of this passage of scripture, the largest stadium that they had could only seat about 3,000 people. The normal rule is that if you're going to build a coliseum, it has to be able to seat at least 10% of the population of that area. That's even something that they try to do even today. So if 5,000 men, not including women and children, are in this mass crowd, he builds a platform. He builds a stage that is bigger than what they're even accustomed to. And he makes the world, Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. He makes this mountain his platform. And he's making an announcement to them saying, if you think feeding 5,000 is one thing, watch what's getting ready to happen when I stand on another hill. This hill that is known as Calvary. I'll stand on this hill. And this platform won't just be for 5,000 people. It'll touch 7 billion. This platform is going to be so powerful because I'm not worried about just feeding 5,000, but I'm going to starve death, hell, and the grave. And when I get finished starving death, hell, and the grave, the entire world will be able to know just how powerful I am. What gives me hope, what excites my heart, what excites my spirit is the fact that I understand that at the end of the day, man and its falling nature will always result in the prejudices and racism and all kinds of isms and schisms. But the hope of the gospel and the beauty of the resurrection is that Christ died for all. And no matter how crazy it looks, and no matter how ridiculous things seem in front of us, we have a resurrected hope because we understand our hope is not built in anything except the blood of Jesus. Takes the broken things. Takes the broken areas. Takes the areas that you don't even have an idea how they're going to come together. He has a way of using them in our lives. Your miracle. It's not in what you lost. It's in what you have left. Sometimes people, places, things try to make you feel as if you lost them. Don't look at what you lost. Look at what you have left. The enemy will try to make you look at when things happen that you don't see coming, that you don't expect, that you don't anticipate. And you're looking at all the things you lost and are released to it. You're looking at all the stuff that happened as a result of it. You're beating yourself up at night and all kinds of stuff because you don't see this, and if I did this right, I did that. No matter what kind of things you said you can change, you can't change the past. All you can do is use it as a springboard for your future. Jesus comes and says, grab the fragments. Grab the leftovers. Grab the stuff that doesn't matter to much people. And watch what I do with it.
God bless you, my friend. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I pray that a word was spoken that transforms and changes your life. Please stay connected with us, www.globalfirenow.com. I'd love to hear from you. Expect great things.